We held a national conference on a solution summit to reform the federal government's subcontracting regulations in order to indeed remove the hurdles that have been existing for more than 30 years.
That will give the contracting officers an incentive.
One of the great things about the organization here and what they're doing is coming up with solutions that will then be delivered to the government and see if those policies can be modified to be more effective.
Required to be accountable by individual contract.
The major problem with subcontracting is that there's no accountability from primes. Major corporations aren't accountable. We don't know how many subcontracts there are in the federal government.
They want to make money, and the best way for them to make money is to have most of the work and to give none of it away. So if you can't have a way of checking and seeing what they're doing, they basically can do anything they want and get away with it, which is what they're doing now.
The subcontracting program indeed has not met the original intent of the subcontracting provisions of Public Law 95-507, Section 211.
Right now, there's no way of forcing the prime contractors to abide by these laws. Basically, you can threaten them all you want, but there's nothing you can do.
I think most people would be shocked to learn that, in fact, the government does not make full use of the small business, does not really favor small businesses the way the policies seem to say that they do.
There has been significant concerns of large companies not being consistent in fulfilling their subcontracting requirements and the federal government not being consistent in assuring that large companies indeed fulfill their subcontracting plans.
I am particularly concerned about acquisition and procurement because I think that the capacity within the federal government to manage contracts has deteriorated.
We're looking for ethics to take place, for the truth to take place, and that is for the government to fulfill its responsibilities under the public law on subcontracting.
The biggest problems the SBA has historically, I think, faced with the subcontracting program is that it's never had enough personnel to effectively monitor.
At the end of the day, the policies aren't working as well as they should be. So the Summit here for Solutions is looking at what can be done, and one of the discussion points here are maybe we should emphasize more on the contracting officers.
Let's use common sense. That why isn't it that the contracting officers have not fulfilled their legal responsibilities?
Regardless of what changes we put into the regulations, there has to be some process put in place that gives SBA the type of personnel that it needs to monitor the plan.
The contracting officer has a responsibility to approve the subcontracting plans and to enforce them, and that is not happening.
In order to have a strong group of subcontractors who are capable and who have the capacity to fulfill these government requirements, we need to have these laws enforced so that these companies can survive.
This is a grassroots movement to try to figure out how we can resolve this subcontracting issue. We're not trying to change the law. The law specifically states that 23% of all business should go to small companies. We're not trying to change that. What we're trying to do is get them to really do it and to implement it in a way that makes it fair for everybody.
I think the American public would be somewhat disheartened to know that these policies are not being well implemented.
Not like the government is now going to change and add more people to the acquisition workforce to oversee these subcontract arrangements. That's not going to happen. That's why we think that relying more on self-actualizing mechanisms like a contractual relationship between the small businesses and the prime contractors.
We have to use our network to find out more about the companies that we're getting into contracts with. I mean, a lot of this responsibility has to fall back on us.
Small businesses need better access to those contract opportunities. So we need a regulatory framework that is more favorable to enhancing the participation of small businesses in federally related subcontracting.
Had a goal of 35%.
Small businesses are getting very, very little money, much less than they're supposed to get by law. So that's a main issue, is the reporting. And how do we force prime contractors to report in an open manner the amount of money that they really give to small businesses?
The large primes are able to hide their underperformance on major weapon systems, for example, behind this cloak of comprehensive reporting.
The U.S. government does not have the stomach to protect the interests of the small business community because it is too cumbersome.
The complaint that I have heard most over the years is that prime contractors will attract small businesses or minority businesses under the guise of doing business with them to help the prime develop a proposal on a large contract. And then once the prime gets the contract, the prime forgets about the companies that helped develop the proposal.
What's happened in many, many cases over my 35 years is that the companies never live up to what they said to do. Or one of the really bad things is they will give you the work to start, and then after the first year, they will then start taking your work away from you.
We should have more transparency on the part of prime contractors doing business with the federal government and the federal government itself to publish what kind of subcontract opportunities there are with major prime contractors. There is no list. There is no website. There isn't anything that tells a small business person what's available.
We're very disappointed that the present proposed regulations basically have no teeth.
We're proposing to define subcontracts to give a little clarity to what's supposed to be included in the pool and what's not supposed to be included in the pool.
There's not a single piece of evidence of the ability of those regulations to really be able to make any change, because all is in reporting, in review. There's no concrete standard that basically says to the large businesses, you shall do this. Okay? And as long as there's not a shall do this, we're going to be in the same situation as we've been the last 30 years for the next 30 years.
It's up to us to find solutions, and we don't have to accept the status quo. We can either choose to continue to complain, or we can join together and change our destiny.
The event is very, very unique, the conference, because it was a working conference. The participants knew from the beginning they were coming to participate in the development of solutions.
We've started to come up with a number of solutions to various issues, whether it's privity or small business subcontracting plans or even past performance evaluations, some solutions that can be implemented here so that small businesses will be treated fairly.
It's part of the American dream. It's part of what we as the whole philosophy of the United States is to have fair and equitable processes, especially when it involves the federal government.
If we don't get some teeth where we can go after these big contractors that aren't doing what they're supposed to do, we will continue to keep getting less and less of the pie.
Active participation in policy circles and policy deliberations on the part of advocacy organizations is an absolutely indispensable part of this process.
Contracting with small business, it's not working the way it should. What are the better ways to do it? And that's what the summit is all about.